College football is back, and we're back on the Big Mountain, where we bring you a fresh take on college football betting, focused on the Big Ten and the Mountain West.
It's great to have you back. It is week 3 already, Steve. Hard to believe. We've been making picks now. This will be the 4th week since we started with week 0. If you haven't viewed us before, if you haven't been on the channel before, my name's JY. This is my good friend Steve. And in this episode, we're going to go over some college football week 3 picks. Steve always does the Big Ten, and I am focused on the Mountain West. And we got a lot of games this week, especially still out of conference. So we got I got a bunch of games that I can call, at least make picks on. So we're going to start with Steve, get right into it, and we'll start down the Mountain, or the Big Ten.
All right.
Go for it.
Let's roll. Okay, so getting right into the picks. So first of all, first game I have is Virginia at Maryland. Maryland let me down. I've been predicting that they're going to be the worst 5-0 team in college football here.
I've been waiting to hear this pick. When I saw this, I'm like, I don't know which way you're going to go.
So here's the thing is, Maryland's already let me down. They had an issue. They started in a hole down 14-0 this last week. So it's hard to cover that many points when you're starting a hole.
Yep.
But Virginia's a bad team. They're just not a good team.
Yeah.
It's at Maryland. I do think Maryland still, they have a good offense.
Yes.
And against teams like Virginia, that offense should be rocking and rolling. So I'm going to go back to the well one more time, and I'm taking Maryland plus 14.5.
All right. Wish you the best.
Yeah. So moving forward, Georgia Southern, which I think was one of your picks last week.
Georgia State.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this week it's actually Georgia Southern.
Correct.
So
yes.
We had the little snafu there with the logo.
The logo. Yep.
So Georgia Southern is at Wisconsin. And so last week I picked Wisconsin, and they came up short for me, but I'm still a believer in Wisconsin. This game is in Madison, so I'm going to go ahead and take Wisconsin minus 19.
That doesn't surprise me, but I will say I have a funny feeling that if this is a close game, or if they don't even cover, I'm wondering if you're going to change your tune on them. I know you like them, and we'll see what happens when they get into the Big West.
Yeah.
Or the Big Ten. I'm getting confused between Mountain West and Big Ten.
Right.
The Big Ten West here. But, keep riding them. I know you're high on them, so they'll hit.
I feel like I'll stay with Wisconsin for a while. It's just it's whether or not that offense is good enough to cover. We'll see.
Right.
I think so this week. I'm going to go Wisconsin minus 19.
Okay.
So Indiana at Louisville, or Louisville, as some of my friends from that area like to say.
Yes.
So honestly, neither one of these are great teams. It's at Louisville. And I think they're a little bit better team, so I'm going to go Louisville minus 10.
Okay.
So a few more points than I wanted. If I would feel a lot better, like 7.5, 8.5, but I'm going to go with Louisville minus 10.
That doesn't surprise me. I saw that, and I thought I'm guessing Steve's going Louisville here, but I wasn't 100% sure. So.
Yeah. Okay, so on our reaction episode, I went ahead and did an early line.
Yes.
I love looking at those early lines, and I gave PSU at Illinois as one of my early picks. So I'm going to maybe not all of our viewers may have watched that episode. So I'm going to go ahead and give that again. The line stayed the same. So I'm going to give that again. And I'm going to talk about my reasons why a little bit. Illinois, I told you I was high on Illinois, and at the beginning of the season, I thought their defense would continue to be strong, even though they lost their coordinator and some other players.
Yep.
Boy, has that not been the case. They went from the number 1 defense in the country last year to, I think, number 106 or 109.
I remember 106 from our reaction video.
Yeah. So their defense obviously has just not stood up, and the opposing quarterbacks have picked them apart. They have not been able to get to the quarterback. They've not been able to contain the quarterback, and they've just been picked apart. And I'm high on Penn State's 5-star Drew Aller.
Absolutely.
He's been fantastic so far. He's lived up even farther than my expectations. So I'm just going to repeat what we had on the earlier, which is Penn State minus 14.5, and I went ahead and made that a Big Mountain ice cold lock. Penn State minus 14.5.
I like that a lot, and I know we talked about that on the reaction video, and for those that are just seeing this for the first time, Steve will do those early calls on our reaction videos. So we always do a reaction video to kind of go back over what we picked and what went right and what went wrong. And at the end of those, Steve, he's actually done them twice now. He did one last week and it hit on the Colorado line, and now he just did Penn State. So, go back and watch those. You'll hear what he has to say about Illinois here as well. And in the reaction video I mentioned, you might be thinking 3 touchdowns here, and that's still where I'm at. I'm thinking this is a 20-point spread here. So I'm loving your 14.5. I'm loving the ice cold lock.
Yeah.
I know you hedged it a little bit about 17, but I think you're in the 20s with that pick. I mean, especially seeing what Illinois has done here the last couple weeks, and then seeing what Penn State's offense has done. It's a match that is not made out well for Illinois right here. So
totally agree with you. I think as a Penn State fan, I have a little bit of nightmares 2 years ago. They were 20-point favorites, and there was that 9 overtime loss.
Yes.
So that's in my head a little bit, but honestly, I think this is two total different teams.
Absolutely.
Penn State with Drew Aller, their offense is just on a different level.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Good pick.
Okay. So the next one I have is Mini at UNC. UNC has one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Mini, I'm just kind of so-so on this year. They do have a solid defense. They've played good defense so far this year. Mm-hmm. I do think their coach is a good coach, but their offense has just struggled. So I went ahead and took UNC minus 7.5 over Mini.
Okay, I like that pick too.
Yeah,
USC's offensively looked very, very strong. So Mini's going to have a handful there to keep that line there. So
totally agree. Okay, so Northwestern at Duke. And I've said from the beginning, I stay consistent. Northwestern is a disaster.
Yes.
So they did get a win over a even more of a disaster team in UTEP
big
last week. A big win,
blowout win.
But I think this is where they're going to come back to.
Yeah.
Duke is a couple weeks off of that upset win over Clemson. Mm-hmm. Duke has a dynamic offense. They've got athletes all over the field. They're right now playing at the highest level of ACC football,
right.
And Northwestern is probably the lowest level of Big Ten football.
Yes.
So I actually have Duke covering minus 18.5.
Yep, good pick.
Yeah. So Western Michigan and Iowa. I thought of you as soon as I saw this line because so Iowa is favored by 28.5 points.
I saw that.
And so you'd think,
and I'm anxious to hear what you're going to say right now.
So you would expect, okay, Western Michigan, even though they're not a great team, they'd at least get a field goal, meaning for Iowa to cover, they'd have to get over 30 points, which I think neither one of us see as likely. So even though I am high on Iowa this year, I think they're a good team, and I think they will contend for the Big Ten West. I don't see them covering those 28.5 points. So even though the game is at Iowa, I'm taking Western Michigan plus 28.5.
And let's remind our viewers we're keeping track of the over 25 points scored per game, and they're at a negative five or six?
6 now. I
six,
think.
negative 6
negative
right
1
now.
and negative 5 the first 2 weeks.
So yeah, that doesn't surprise me. When I saw the line, I went, "Ooh, there's that 25," and I'm not liking that line for Iowa.
And honestly, I really thought they would be motivated to push the envelope and get a little more aggressive so that they can meet that 25 points a game. Because it's only going to get tougher when they get into the Big Ten West schedule.
100%.
But so far, they haven't. They're still playing regular Iowa ball.
Right.
They look like they'd be happy to win games 6-3 every week.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not betting on them to cover. So Western Michigan plus 28.5.
All right.
Now, on the opposite end of this, Ohio State, so they are 29.5 point favorites over Western Kentucky. I have been a little down. Well, first of all, I've been high on Ohio State as a great team this year. However, I was a little down on their offense. They were having trouble figuring out their starting quarterback. Finally, they settled on Kyle McCord.
Right.
He wasn't so great the first couple weeks. This last week, I really do think that he took a step forward. I think that they may have figured that out at least enough. I don't know if it's enough to win a national championship, but I do think it's enough to cover. So I'm taking OSU 29.5 over Western Kentucky.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So this next one, Washington at Michigan State. Washington is 16-point favorites. I was down on Michigan State to start the season. They played a little bit better than I thought they would.
Yeah.
But they just had to fire their coach, or I guess he's suspended pending a hearing. But everyone, the assumption is going to be fired.
Yeah.
So they have some turmoil there. I'm not big on their roster. Washington, I think, is maybe a top 5 team in the country. I think they have one of the best quarterbacks in the country, Michael Penix, as we talked about a few times.
Yep.
Heisman Trophy contender, and they're really pushing to get him on the map as a Heisman Trophy contender. So they've been pushing the envelope offensively. So I actually have Washington to cover minus 16 over Michigan State.
Yeah, I like that bet. I've made picks on Washington for the last 2 weeks. Went 1-1 with them. They didn't cover last week. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing not to like about that offense. They're going to be scoring points. So I totally understand where you're at there.
All right. So Northern Illinois and Nebraska. So I think Nebraska's going to win this game. They are 10.5-point favorites at home against Northern Illinois. That's a team they should beat every week. But I don't see their offense yet being in a place that they're going to cover. They say great teams cover. Well, Nebraska is an okay so-so team. They're a good defense.
Yes.
They can stop the run. Their quarterback was a Sims. He was a bad quarterback in Georgia Tech, and for some reason they're like, hey, let's go get this really, like, maybe he's a good running back, or maybe he was a good high school quarterback.
Right.
But as far as he's a complete disaster as a quarterback at the college level, and so I don't see them covering. So I'm going to go ahead and take Northern Illinois plus 10.5.
Okay. All right.
Bowling Green at Michigan. So I've been riding the Michigan's not going to cover bandwagon, and it's worked out really well.
It has.
Bowling Green is not a good team at all. Michigan is definitely a top 5 team in the country. They have the ability to cover if they wanted to.
Yes.
I just don't see them being motivated. Their coach is still suspended. They're looking at that long term, which is the Penn State game and the Ohio State game later in the season. So I see them getting in there, getting a lead, putting the backups in, and I don't see them covering. So I'm taking Bowling Green plus 40.5.
Wow, I'm torn on that a little bit. That's a huge number. 40 points is a humongous number, but I could see them covering this week. I just don't think they're going to continually not cover. I think they're going to have to start ramping it up. Maybe not this week, but in the near future, they're going to have to start blowing people out. So I get where you're at with the 40. I think that was down in the mid-30s. If it was me, I'd be taking Michigan to cover. 40's pretty aggressive, but that'll be interesting. That's a big line.
I mean, they absolutely can cover if they want
Sure,
to.
Yeah,
but
I just don't think there's a.
I don't see the drive. They know that if they beat Penn State, they beat Ohio State, they win the Big Ten, they're going to be in the college football playoff. So I'm going to keep riding that Michigan not covering until it doesn't hit.
It's been good for you. I hear you. You might as well ride it when you have it. When you got something hot, stay on that sucker. So I hear you.
Okay, so my last game is Syracuse at Purdue. We've talked about this before. I expected Purdue to take a step back this year.
Yep.
They have. They did pull out a win at Virginia Tech last week, which was that's a good road win over a not so great ACC team, but it is. I mean, it was a road win. I think Syracuse is not maybe a lot better, but significantly better than Virginia Tech. So I'm actually going to take Syracuse to cover minus 2.5 at Purdue.
Yep. So I would be right there with you. If that wasn't a Big Ten game, I'd make that another pick for me. I'm not going to double up with you because that doesn't do our viewers much good. You're already picking it, but if that was a game I could pick, I'd be taking Syracuse as well.
I totally know what you mean because I was looking at that Mountain West schedule this week. I was like, I wish I could pick this game. I wish I could pick that one. There's some good. So I'm interested to see what you have for us,
okay.
JY.
Well, before we get into that, why don't we go over a quick summary so that the viewers can see what all we did with the Big Ten, remind them of your ice cold lock, and then we'll get into the Mountain West. So go ahead.
All right. Okay, so going down these, I have Maryland minus 14.5 over Virginia. Wisconsin minus 19 over Georgia Southern. Louisville minus 10 over Indiana. And as a Big Mountain ice cold lock, I have Penn State minus 14.5 over Illinois. I have UNC minus 7.5 over Minnie. Duke minus 18.5 over Northwestern. And I'm going to go ahead and take Western Michigan plus the point. So Western Michigan plus 28.5 over Iowa. Don't think Iowa will cover. But I do think OSU will cover minus 29.5 over Western Kentucky. Washington minus 16 over Michigan State. I'm taking Northern Illinois plus the points, plus 10.5 over Nebraska. And Bowling Green, this is the first time in my life I've ever bet on Bowling Green. Bowling Green plus 40.5 over Michigan because I think Michigan will put the Ferraris in the garage once they get up 30 points. And then Syracuse minus 2.5 over Purdue.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Steve. And speaking of putting the Ferraris in the garage, that's exactly what happened last week against UNLV. I had that pick and was a little concerned going into the fourth quarter until the Ferraris got put away and then UNLV covered. So, like you say, it's been working for you. Might as well keep riding that horse. So,
all right.
Let's go to the Mountain West.
Let's do it.
I do have a good slate of games here. Fine. Last week was very light. I had to throw a lot of others in there. But I got a great slate. The only game right now that I don't think has a line is the Boise State game. So I'll check that. They always get lines there the day of. So I'll check that, see if I like it. Maybe make a pick on it. But other than that, we're good to go here. So we start off Friday night, which a game I'm really glad is on Friday night. I'm going to be able to watch it. I really want to watch it. I'm anxious to see this Utah State team because I think they have surprised in the first 2 weeks.
Yep.
They had a really good game against Iowa in week 1, and they get up Air Force here this week. So I'm really keyed up for this game as a Mountain West fan. It's the first, Mountain Conference game, Mountain West versus Mountain West. And I am going to take Utah State with the points because I think Air Force will win the game. So if anybody wants to go money line, I think Air Force will win this game. But I just don't see them having a huge spread. I mean, they could barely get much of a spread on Sam Morris last week. And so I am taking Utah State plus the points. That's plus 10 right now. And I like where Utah State's offense has been in scoring points. And I think they keep this sucker close. I also like the under here. I'm not going to make that a pick right now. Might be a game day pick. We'll see what happens. But my pick for this game is Utah State plus 10. Take the points with them. I think they will cover.
I like it. You and I were discussing this game when the line came out. I think it was a 9 or 9.5, and we were already chomping at the bit on that.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because the line I'm not going to name the sports books, but the line started dramatically different in different sports books. One had them around 7, one had it about 13.5.
Wow!
So dramatic difference when these books opened this week.
Yeah.
For this game, I mean, clearly they just are confused as to, in my opinion, what can Air Force do on offense? I think that's the biggest question here.
And if I may, that comes down to something you and I have talked about every week. We've talked about this since the preview show. Is how is the new rules that affect cut blocking? That they basically got rid of cut blocking. Yep. How does that going to affect the Air Force offense? So far, it's definitely slowed them down.
Yep.
This is going to be a really good test.
Yep.
Air Force should win this game, like you said, but if Utah can cover or keep it close or even pull up an upset, that might be really indicative of Air Force and their offense and how much it's affected by that rule change.
And you brought up the 9.5. I mean, I'll make it a 9.5 pick too because it has been moving. So I guess in fairness, if everybody gets on and says, "Oh, it's 9.5," he picked 10. What should I do? I'll still take him at 9.5 here. I like it within 2, max 3 field goals. We're not talking more than maybe 1 touchdown here. We're talking field goals as the difference. So I'll take those 3 field goals at 9.5. So I'm comfortable with that line as well. If you can get them at 10, that's a great line. So let's move on. Enough about that one game, but very excited about that game. Next one I've got is San Diego State at Oregon State. Pretty disappointed in San Diego State's offense so far. I think they're going to be okay. We were both higher than them early on. I still am. They're going to be a fine Mountain West team. Going up against some strong opponents here in the beginning of the year. We talked about that in the preview video, so I'm not too surprised. A lot of Mountain West fans are calling San Diego State about how bad their showings are. Yeah, the spread against UCLA was a little more than you would hope for, but when games get away from you, what are you going to do about it? Still have a very strong defense, which is what I think is going to propel them to be a top 3 or 4 team in the Mountain West this year. But the line with Oregon State's minus 24.5. I don't think they have the offense to stay with Oregon State here. Oregon State has a great defense. Again, they lost some players. I bet against them early on, and they came out. They just, restocked the cupboard, and they're ready to go. So I'm going to take Oregon State at minus 24.5 to beat San Diego State at home.
I don't blame you. I think Oregon State might be a top 10 team in the country. They've been very impressive this year. Like you said, San Diego State's defense have been impressive, but their offense specifically, I think their quarterback has not really hasn't done much. And since the quarterback is not a threat, their running game has kind of been just. I mean, the teams can stack against the run. So
correct,
good pick.
Yep. Next one, Vanderbilt at UNLV.
Okay.
And I find UNLV to be a solid team here. The line is 4.5. I see a lot of people picking Vandy in this game. But I'm going to take the points with UNLV. I go back to that first week's contest with Hawaii that Vanderbilt had. Hawaii surprised us. We said, well, what was going on? The next week, Hawaii gets smoked pretty good by an okay Stanford team.
Back at home, right?
Yeah, back at home. So I kind of question Vandy here a little bit. And I appreciate UNLV's game. As I said, they played a decent run defense against Michigan. It was the pass defense that was just non-existent. So I think they keep this close. I am taking the points in this game. It's at UNLV, so I got UNLV plus 4.5.
When the game is close and you're not exactly sure, it's always nice to be able to take the points.
Get those points. Yeah. Yep. So I'm taking UNLV. The next two games that I have on my slate, I'm not going to make a pick yet. So the first one is San Jose State at Toledo. For those of you that have seen our picks before, you know I'm high on San Jose State's offense. I want to see what the line is on their points here. I may go San Jose State over, but that line's not out yet. So I'm not going to make a call on that game. But I may do a game day pick. So, make sure you've got your notifications on to get our game day picks. I get them out early Saturday.
So make sure you're subscribed and you got your notifications on.
That's right. The next game, you're going to hate this, Steve.
Oh, boy.
You're going to hate it.
Uh-oh.
Wyoming at Texas.
Okay.
I am not going to make a call today.
Okay. All right.
And here's why. I wanted to.
Yeah.
I got my Steamboat shirt on for Pete's sake.
Yep.
But Peasley is questionable for this game. The last that I saw, Peasley is questionable. And to me, that's the difference between them potentially beating the spread here. I think Texas's offense will. A lot of people are high on Wyo's defense. They're putting a ton of stock on that first game with Texas Tech, and it's a great, huge upset. I love it, but I'm not sure I'm putting a whole lot of weight on that versus this Texas team. So the line right now, do I have it written down here? I don't have it written down right now. I think it's 24-ish. It's mid-20s if I remember correctly. If I had to make a pick, I'm probably going Texas right now. But I really want to see what's going on with Peasley. And if he's definitely out, my game day pick will be Texas to cover here. But I'm not going to make that call yet.
If I could say a few things.
Yep.
Texas just coming off that huge, impressive win over Alabama. They really took it to Alabama.
Yep.
I mean, great team. They're completely loaded. They might be a college football playoff team.
Yes.
Quinn Ewers was my preseason pick for Heisman. He's been excellent. He might end up being number 1 draft pick next year.
Yeah.
Or he's going to be. So they just have a great team. They're loaded. So I definitely understand why you have some trepidation there about, especially with it's Wyoming's quarterback that's out.
Wyoming
right?
quarterback. Yeah. Peasley is questionable right now. So that's a huge make or break. I'm 50-50 on the line. If he was there, I'm definitely on Texas if he's not. So we'll try to do an update here as soon as we can when we know what's going on with Peasley.
Another reason for people to check out the game day picks.
Absolutely. Yep. Next one, Hawaii at Oregon, minus 37.5. Big spread. You took the points with your big spread. I'm saying Oregon covers this. I'm going back to where I was in preseason before that close Vandy game with Hawaii. I think, as I said, they are who I thought they were. And I think Oregon covers this spread. I'm taking them minus 37.5.
Yeah, Oregon has a completely different offensive approach to Michigan. Oregon loves points. Michigan's like allergic to points, so almost as bad as Iowa.
Right.
So I totally understand why you're going there. And Oregon's a great team, and Hawaii is not. So right. I think Oregon this year they scored 82 or 83 points against Portland State.
Yeah.
Which who knows, is Hawaii even really that much better than Portland State?
And Portland State did well against Wyoming here.
Exactly.
So. We'll wait and see what happens there. But, I think Oregon's scoring 50s. They're going to be in the 50s.
Yeah.
Can Hawaii even get 2 touchdowns here? I just don't know.
Yeah.
So, anyway, next one is the Battle of New Mexico.
Woo!
New Mexico State at New Mexico. I was actually on New Mexico State early back in week 0. Thought they would beat up on UMass.
They let you down.
Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to him here. The line is plus 1.5. It's almost an even line. We talked about close games taking the points. I think it will be a close game. I think people are pretty down on New Mexico State right now after the beginning of the season that they had. I don't think they're that bad of a team. I do think New Mexico is a struggling team, has been a struggling team. I'm taking the points here, plus 1.5. New Mexico State.
Maybe it'd be better if they just everyone gets confused between New Mexico and New Mexico State. Maybe they just need to merge and form one team.
They could probably try to do that, but I'm sure that's going to upset any New Mexico or New Mexico State fans.
So if you're a New Mexico or New Mexico State fan, leave me a comment. Tell me how wrong I am about
Please tell him how wrong he is, because he's right way too often. But anyway, next one we got Colorado State at Colorado. I'm sure this is one that you are wanting to hear what I have to say about. I mean, obviously, we all know, unless you're living under a rock, what's happened with Colorado here to start the season. Off to a blistering start. Offense is amazing. Coach Prime doing what he does, if you will. Colorado State, on the other hand, not as good. I mean, they've not looked good at all. Disappointing, quite frankly, start. So you've got a team that's clearly on the upward trend and riding high, a team that hasn't had the start they probably wanted. It's in Colorado. It's on ESPN, I believe. Is that right? Maybe not. I don't know. But
I know Big Noon Kickoff is going to be doing their big show on.
Yes, it's Colorado. On ESPN.
Okay.
Colorado State on ESPN at 10 o'clock. I see no way Colorado State stays with Colorado. I am taking Colorado at, frankly, in my opinion, somewhat of a surprising minus 22.5. And I am ice cold locking them, boys. We did it before. We're doing it again.
Lock it
ice cold lock Colorado. Buffs here. I think they're gonna breeze through Colorado State on this. So at 22.5, I'm locking this all day.
I love it. It's a big game when the game's going to be on ESPN. However, Fox changed their Big Noon Kickoff show to do it in Colorado, in Boulder. To highlight this game that they're not even showing on their network.
Right.
I still think Vegas is behind on Colorado because the expectation was maybe they win like 3 or 4 games. Sadur Sanders, Deion's son, I don't know what his ceiling is. I don't know if he's going to be a top-level NFL quarterback eventually.
Yep.
But for the college level right now, I don't know if there's anybody playing at a higher level than him as far as throwing the ball. All of his numbers are sky high.
Yeah.
And he's got Travis Hunter, who might be the best overall player on defense and offense.
Which is crazy to me. I don't know how they do that.
It's amazing. But he's got other receivers, and they are scoring points.
Yes.
And so far, I don't know if Colorado State has shown the ability to score a lot of points and stay with them. So I'm with you. I think it's this is one I'm envious that you get to pick. I wish I could pick this one, but I'm gonna.
Well, we're locking it. We're locking it.
I'm gonna take your lock, and I'm putting my money down because I think it's a great bet.
Yep. Awesome. So we got 2 more Mountain West. We've got Fresno State at Arizona State. Fresno State coming off a great performance versus Purdue, had a bit of a stinker versus the home opener, and against Eastern Washington. I think they bounce back here. I think Mikey has a bounce back game here. Keene at quarterback didn't have the greatest of games, and probably got a little caught up in the Purdue win, and then an easy home opener. And I think they're going to go out in Arizona State, take care of business. They're at a -3. I'm good to go with Fresno on this game. So I would take Fresno State at a -3.
So for our Fresno viewers, I'm going to say go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
I love that pick. And it is a great opportunity for them. They already have a road win, Big Ten road win.
Yep.
This game's at Arizona State, correct?
Correct, at Arizona State.
So they might be able to start the season here with a road Big Ten win and a road Pac-12 win.
Absolutely.
Which would be amazing for their resume going forward.
Darlings of the Mountain West, if that happens right now. Them and Wyoming are carrying the torch right now.
And it would set them up really nicely if they could somehow. I know you didn't have them picked to win.
Right.
But, at the top 4 or 5 teams, anything could happen.
Sure.
If they did go through and make a run in the Mountain West, that could set them up to be the highest power group of 5,
yes,
which could put them in a New Year's 6 bowl, which would be amazing.
The way they're started, and if they can keep busting through the lineup here and get through these games, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. They've got name recognition now after last season.
Yep.
I think the sky's the limit. I think for this team, and I think they're going to have a good bounce back here after again a bit of a stinker last week.
I like it.
Last one, Kansas at Nevada. Nevada just, they have been struggling to start the season, just can't score points. The line here is 27.5, maybe a bit high, but I just don't see Nevada scoring much here. And again, I think Kansas could be in the 50s. I mean, I talked about Oregon being in the 50s. I think Kansas runs up the score here. Why not when you can?
Yep.
They have a very strong offense there. So I'm going to take Kansas here at minus 27.5 to cover that spread. Again, I think that's a 30 to 40 point spread in that game. So yeah, I'm very confident in that pick, and not only confident, Steve, I'm going to make it my second Big Mountain Ice Cold lock.
Love it.
Kansas minus 27.5.
I love it. Kansas, they have a great quarterback, a dual threat quarterback that can beat you both ways. They have an aggressive offense, one of the best coaches, offensive minded coaches in the country, and they love to score points. They're not allergic to points. They're like the anti-Iowa, and so I love it. I absolutely love it. I'll be putting my money on that one too.
Yeah, so I think they will be scoring their points, like you said, anti-Iowa, and honestly, even somewhat, I'm betting on them being the anti-Michigan, and just riding games out. They're just keep going, keep pounding it in, pedal to the metal the entire time. So yeah, I like Kansas there. So I do have two other picks that I'm going to throw out because we didn't make enough picks yet. So the first one is going to be the CMU at Notre Dame game.
I looked at that one.
And I'm actually going to take the over in this game, over 52.5 right now. I think Notre Dame's probably up around 50 here. So if it's an over and under of 52.5, even if they're in the mid 40s, I think CMU will score some points here as well. So I like that over at 52.5. I'd have it all the way up to probably about 55. So I'm going to take the over 52.5 for the Notre Dame or the CMU at Notre Dame game.
Okay.
And the last one I started with Georgia State last week. Georgia State is at Charlotte this week.
Yeah.
The line is 7.5. Would love to see it at 6.5 or 7. You know how I am with those touchdowny things. But the line last week was 2.5, if you recall, when I made my pick. And they won by 30 or 25 or something ridiculous. I mean, they blew the line out of the water. So I'm back on Georgia State again at minus 7.5 to cover against Charlotte.
Okay, I like it. So you want to do a review and go over your
picks? Let's do
first?
A review real quick.
Okay.
We'll go down the Mountain West here. So the first game here, we've got Utah State at plus, we'll say 9.5. If you can get them at 10, great. We've got Oregon State at minus 24.5. We've got UNLV getting 4.5. We've got Oregon at minus 37.5. We've got New Mexico State getting 1.5. We have an ice cold lock for Colorado minus 22.5. We've got Fresno State over Arizona State at minus 3. And another ice cold lock with Kansas covering 27.5 versus Nevada. Then two other picks for you, taking the over 52.5, CMU at Notre Dame, and minus 27.5 for Georgia State to beat Charlotte.
Okay. All right. Well, those were JY's picks. So keep an eye out for our NFL special episode. We're going to make some picks, some NFL picks. We're loosely basing this on some Big Ten and Mountain West players.
Yep.
We might go outside of that a little bit sometimes, but we're going to do so. Keep looking for that episode. Make sure you subscribe, turn on the notifications so you see that pop up. That's it for me, Jay.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Steve. Week 3 in the books. Let's see how we do. We'll come back. We'll do a reaction video, so you want to check that out. They usually hit around Monday at some point. So, check us out, see how we did. We do a cumulative summary of the year as well. And if you're wondering where we're at this, check out the last one we did here earlier in the week, and you can see where we're at. So with that, we'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.